Welcome you to our August the 26th, 2025 Policy Committee meeting. And let me just say, I think we have enough work to do with policies that will last us 4 or 5 meetings. So we really had to change the agenda for tonight since we are on a time restriction because we have a 6 o'clock meeting right after this. So we will jump in and get started. We'll call this meeting to order. And we will start with policy 1.02, policy GDB, professional staff contracts and compensation. And I believe, Ms. Allison, this one has recommendations from legal. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first 5 have recommendations from us, and they're based on new state laws. And then the last 2 that are on there are ones that you all wanted to talk about. So I think we can probably go through the first 5 pretty quickly, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this one is about staff contracts, and you'll see on your policies that after the 3rd paragraph under contracts is all underlined. That means it's being added, and then you'll see that the whole Terry part is in red and stricken because the Terry program no longer exists, and so that policy has just not been updated, and so that's why the red strike throughs you'll see are because that no longer exists. So we updated that for you. But the part that you need to look at that is being added, it is based on the new law that talks about you have to publish your salary schedule for certified employees as soon as the budget has been approved, with the understanding that contracts are going to be issued before budgets are approved, before the state finishes their budget, before you have finished yours. But once the budgets have been approved and your salary schedule is approved, you have to then send it to all certified employees. So we had to update the policy for that reason.
Okay, and I apologize, Ms. Allison, this was my fault, but we are being live streamed tonight, so let me do quick just introductions of everybody.
Sure.
Myself, Board Member Nixon, Board Member Cunningham are both here. That's the Complete Policy Committee. Superintendent Williams is here. Ms. Linda Hyman is here. Dr. Bagley is here. And then we have several of our upper district staff here with us today, which I'm sure will have some input on some of these policies as we go through. So and we have Ms. Allison Hanna via Zoom. So just wanted to make sure we did that for everybody who's watching at home. Okay, so Ms. Hanna, according to everything you just said and all of that being legal, is there anything from the staff point of view, Superintendent Williams, is there anything from?
So if we're going one by one, so do we want to just start with GCB?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so like Attorney Hanna said, everything that's underlined are things that we must put in there according to the law. And basically, it's just that we must send that salary schedule to teachers once the budget process is finished, and the strikeout of the Terry program. And I think that's about it for that one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a quick question. Is this mic working? I don't know. You can hear me. It doesn't matter.
Just hit the button.
Yeah.
Let me turn it on the bottom for you.
Oh, okay. Maybe that.
I got you.
Maybe that will help. But I can project, as for opera singer. Oh, there we are. Green light. Yes. Very quick, Allison, I remember that at the meeting this weekend, they talked about the fact that contracts had to go out by May 1st, and that they had to include the pay schedule with the contract when it went out, or we would be fined $10,000 per.
No, you have to send the contract by May 1st, or you will be fined by $10,000. This is what is the added part now, is that you have to send them the salary schedule as soon as it has been approved, because the budget it will not be approved by the state by May 1st, nor will it be approved by your board.
Okay.
But what you're referring to is if you don't give somebody a contract that should get one, then it's a $10,000 fine, and that is new.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham, any questions on this particular policy? Okay. And I know, Superintendent Williams, we do have the highly esteemed HR director here. Is there anything, Ms. Hamilton, anything that this affects y'all in any way or anything we need to consider?
Nothing different.
All right, so we're good on that one. So we will go, Ms. Hannah, to 1.03, policy GCI, professional staff development.
Yes, so all that we're doing here is adding two long paragraphs, but two paragraphs to this. And this, again, we don't have any leeway over this. We don't have any discretion. This just sets forth, you already have to have 10 days added to teachers' contracts. So students are in session 180 days. Teachers are in session 190. So that's 10 days of professional development. This tells you how the professional development at least partially must be broken out. And the new thing that is there is that at least 2 of the days have to be unencumbered time for the teachers to do whatever it is they need to do to get their classes ready, their plans, whatever it is they need to do. They can't be burdened with professional development, parent-teacher meetings, things of that nature. So we have added that. And then there's also a paragraph that deals with a teacher renewal credit for certificates. So again, we have to include this. There's no exception.
And Ms. Allison, on the 2 days that must be unencumbered, do we have any guidance on when specifically those have to be, or is it just any time in that 190 days?
They're at the beginning of the school year is when they're supposed to be.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just like to say that basically, I know that this has to be written into policy, but this is basically the structure that we've been following for years. The only thing is those 2 work days that have to be unencumbered, and we made sure that we followed that this school year. So
Okay.
our teachers did have 2 days of unencumbered time. The time that we did have some staff development that needed to occur, but it was for very small groups of teachers, and we made sure that we gave them that time back to make sure that we were in accordance with the law.
Okay. All right.
And also for this school year in particular, the State Department granted a lot of leeway because it was new. A lot of staff training schedules had already been set by the time this actually passed the legislature. So this year leeway was granted, but not going forward.
So, Ms. Allison, in the situation that Superintendent Williams just described, will that be allowed in the future, or will it have to be?
That would.
Okay, as long as we give it back to them.
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
And it may cost you a little bit of money if you have to pay them for a half a day, they had to do something, but yes, it is allowed.
Okay. Superintendent Williams, is there anything else from you or from your staff on that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I think that's the meat of the changes to this
And basically,
policy.
we're already abiding
And
by
we're in
this, we're just writing it
compliance
into
with
policy.
Is there anything district-level staff that you all can think of as far as GCI is concerned? I think we were very diligent because, as you know, it takes a team to make sure that we are operating effectively. And as a team, this came up, and we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance. So we had to make some changes, but we made those changes, and we made sure those teachers had those 2 days of unencumbered time.
Okay. All right, committee members, anything else? No, sir. All right, we're moving right on to 1.04, policy GCK and ARGCKR, professional staff assignments and transfers.
So this one is a fairly major revision, but also, again, it is required by law, new law. So the way the law is still on the books, just so you know, that says teachers have to be notified of their assignment by August 15th of each year. And I will say August 15th is a wonderful day because it's my birthday. So this is one of those laws that I can always remember the date, but August 15th. But what we're revising now is the law is now saying, because so many schools, including yours, are on a year-round or a modified year-round schedule. So you're going back to school, July 28th, August 4th, whatever the date is. And so now what the law says is the schools have to notify teachers of their assignments not later than 14 calendar days before students are scheduled to return. You have to give them their tentative assignment. And then once they're at their school, teachers cannot be reassigned to work at another location. That doesn't mean within the same school building, but another location. So you can't be transferred from Hendersonville to Northside, okay? Unless the superintendent can demonstrate the need for the reassignment. And that needs to happen at least 5 days in advance, unless there is an emergency that has to be demonstrated in writing by the superintendent. And so this just puts some restrictions on the staff, on the administration for reassignments. It does not mean it cannot happen. And when this typically happens is after day 10, your day 10 enrollment, and after day 45. How this came about was a large district in the Midlands last year reassigned a whole lot of teachers after day 45 with no notice and basically said tomorrow, meaning Friday to Monday, you've got to be at a different school, a different grade level. So again, we don't have any leeway with this. This is what the law says. It's just putting in place the parameters for how reassignments are going to take place. It does not mean you cannot reassign staff, particularly based on your student enrollment and your needs. So, but again, we have to adopt this. We don't have the ability not to adopt it.
So I do have one question, Allison. So I just want to be clear. So after the 10th day, because I know, we look at staffing ratios, student to teacher ratios. After the 10th day, if we have to make changes in teacher assignments, we can do that. We just have to give 5 days written notice to that teacher that they will be reassigned. Is that correct?
You don't even have to give 5 days if you can prove it's a critical need. They want you to give 5 days, but yes, you can still move people, yes. You can move them at any point. The law doesn't say the 5 and 45 day. I'm just using that as that's the most common times that changes are made. Let's say you start the second semester and you realize you don't need an extra math class at the high school, but you could use that person for one class at the middle school. You can make that change with 5 days notice. But the most common reasons are the 10 and 45 day enrollments.
Superintendent Williams, anything else from you
No,
as
I
far as
think-
that comes?
No, I think that was the only thing that just needed to be clear.
Okay.
District level staff, is there anything else in policy GCK that could be unclear? Or needs clarity? Good? All right.
Mr. Nixon or Mr. Cunningham, anything?
Right, I did mention because at the conference, thank you. At the conference, I did get the part about the teachers had to be notified within 14 days prior to the return of students about reassignments. So my question was, did we need to then update on that paragraph that said on or before August 15th?
That's still the state law. That's still the
Oh,
state
still the
law.
state
So
law,
we're going to
15th.
leave.
Okay.
The state law has not changed, so we just left that because the next part clarifies it. Because there are still some districts, and you all may go back to a traditional calendar at some point. So we just left it because it's still the state law and hadn't been revised. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else, anything on policy GCK? All right. Policy JF, student absences and excuses.
So I don't know if we, before we go to that one, Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Irwin, there's an administrative rule that's attached to GCK, that talks about voluntary transfer.
Okay, I apologize. I skipped right past that.
It's attached to the main policy.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that we need to be mindful of, Attorney
So
Hannah?
GCKR
Yeah.
is a very minor revision. And it is just adding, it's to clarify that we're going to make any changes with transfers consistent with state law as set forth in the policy. That's just to kind of clarify that if it's an involuntary or voluntary, basically involuntary transfer during the school year, we're going to comply with that statute. We just talked about those changes.
So it's just the underlined part in that rule, we just add that
That's all.
to it?
It's just a couple words. That's the only change to that policy.
Okay.
Or that rule.
Again, anyone, any questions or comments about that, about the rule? All right, Superintendent Williams, are we good now? Policy JF, student absences and excuses? Okay.
Pull that one up.
So student student absences, this is a new law that has to be included in the policy. And it also, again, we have no leeway for this, and it deals with career and technical student organizations that they have to be allowed, students have to be allowed up to 10 days. They have 10 days that they can miss that are considered excused absences. They can make up their work as long as they're participating in a school, sponsored event where there is a teacher or staff member present for the event, and it's through the CAPE program. And what I understand from listening to presentations is it basically dealt with FFA and 4-H programs. There was a district, I don't know what district it was, but they had a principal or two who was not approving absences when their students went to these competitions. And so their legislator got involved. So we now all have a new law that we're going to put in policy. So any of your CATE students, it's not just FFA and FHA and 4-H. It could be if you all have your CATE program has a culinary arts program and they're going to the teen chopped championship somewhere. It's any of your CATE programs. They get up to 10 days of excused absences that the principal has no leeway. Again, no leeway, I keep saying. There's no discretion. They get 10 days. They have to make up their work. It has to be school sponsored, and there has to be an employee present. And so that's what this underlined language at the end of the policy does.
So I just want to toot our horn. I just want to say on behalf of the Colleton County School District, even though this is now a policy, we do honor our CAPE classes whenever they go on field trips or our students have competitions that they're involved in, that we're very responsive to that. And I want to thank the board for approving their different visits and trips, different places. But I really feel that Colleton County School District does a very good job with exposing our children to different experiences, especially in the CAPE world.
And I don't think we have those revisions. I have them in the email that you sent this afternoon, so I'm passing that around to Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Nixon now. They're looking at the addition to that policy real quick, just see if we have any questions.
I was going to mention, Allison, that was one of the things that I got at this conference as well, about the allowing the 10 days for those opportunities for the student, those experiences. But the other thing on this policy, I wanted to ask a question. When it talks about suspension is not to be counted as an unlawful absence for truancy purposes, and then in the next line, it says, the principal will be responsible for implementing and expediting medical homebound instruction for students. Now, is that still on the principal to arrange that, or is there someone else that does that in the county?
It does what?
Well, the principal's the one who starts the process, because usually it goes to them, and they're going to turn it over to your district office, and it probably goes to Dr. Jenkins' office, if I had to guess, or maybe Dr. Durden's, depending on if the child has an IEP or 504, or if it's just somebody broke a leg and had to have surgery, and it's not a special education service, but it will go from the principal to the district office.
Okay, so the implementing in this case actually means just getting the ball started.
Yeah, and it's got to go over there, and we have a whole different set of policies in Section I that would deal with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is instruction.
Yeah, and just to say, yeah, we do have a process. So if a teacher initiates a field trip, then we have a system that they put it in the system, and then the principal has to approve it, and then it goes to the district level for approval as well.
I was talking about homebound.
Medical homebound.
Medical homebound, yes. Yeah, it's at the bottom of
Okay.
Okay, because it says the principal will be responsible for initiating, and I wasn't sure whether that was done by the principal or by some other entity.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, she said the principal gets the ball rolling, so they know which child has been sick or what have you. So, all right, want to clarify that point?
Sure.
Mr. Cunningham, anything? Okay, Superintendent Williams or your staff, anything else for that?
That's it? Anything else?
Just for the sake of the conversation, we do have a homebound coordinator, and it's a lead nurse Dingle.
Okay.
But still, that starts from the principal, and then Nurse Dingle takes over from there?
Yes.
Okay,
You have to follow
awesome.
for that process.
Okay. Ms. Allison, I think if I'm correct, that is it for our legal additions to our policies. Is that correct?
For tonight, because the next one, we're going to need to talk about unencumbered time for nurses and 4K teachers, as well as updating the policy for live streaming board meetings. Now, you already live stream, so I'm not concerned except for the fact that we have to update the policy for the State Department, but you all live stream and it's placed on your website, so you're good. But at our next meeting, we're going to need to do that, again, as well as the unencumbered time for nurses and 4K teachers.
Okay. Our nurses and 4K teachers said they didn't want any unencumbered time.
Well, they're going to get it.
They did.
So.
All right, I'm
But
just kidding,
We'll need to
just
do that
kidding.
at the next meeting,
If any
okay?
of our nurses or 4K
And I have
teachers
a
are
bridge
watching,
to sell you.
I was just kidding, just kidding.
That was a joke.
Okay, Superintendent Williams, 1.06, policy GCQA and GCQB is instructional staff and administrative staff reduction in force.
Yes, so the next two policies basically outline steps that the district would take if the need arose for the district to reduce staff. We hope that this does not occur, but we want to be prepared and make sure that our policies are in line with our actions in the event this has to occur. So the very first policy, GCQA/GCQB, is the policy on instructional staff and administrative staff reduction in force. And then the next one is support staff reduction in force. Basically, this particular law gives you the reasons for having to reduce staff. And some of those reasons, as stated in the policy, is because of decreases in student enrollment, changes in the curriculum, financial issues, or other circumstances as determined by the board. Those are the reasons. And then the policy also outlines the procedure for how that's done. So before you begin this action not to renew professional staff contracts, the board will consider its ability to eliminate positions or to reduce staff by any of the following methods. So as you can see, there are 6 methods to take into consideration. First, voluntary retirement is one, voluntary resignation, transfer of existing staff members to other locations, voluntary leaves of absence, salary reductions, and then part-time employment. The policy goes on to talk about this RIF, which is reduction in force, will be on a district-wide basis. Therefore, the superintendent is not limited to they're just going to reduce this at one school location, but looking at the district as a whole and making those decisions based upon those circumstances, decreases in enrollment, changes in the curriculum, financial matters, any of those things. Okay? If we look at the second page of this policy, that very first bullet, it talks about the superintendent, after considering the possibilities set forth, which I just described, then the superintendent will have to present those recommendations to the board for approval. And then once the board approves the elimination then the superintendent will use specified criteria to select those professional staff members who are to be considered for non-renewal. And then it gives you criteria there as well, but it also says it does not have to be in this particular order. But these are just considerations that the superintendent can make, such as when you're deciding who you're going to non-renew, you're looking at things like their certification areas. There may be, so just to give you an example, so you may have less students in your special ed population, and you may need less teachers that are certified in certain areas. So you might look at those certification areas and decide, okay, I need to reduce some special education teachers based upon what certification areas they're certified in. That's just an example. Or you can look at the degrees earned. Or you can look at their professional experience in other areas which may have open positions. So you may need more teachers in another area, and if you have teachers that are dual certified or certified in other areas, you may decide, okay, even though this teacher is certified as an elementary educator, she might be certified as a secondary educator as well, and I need her or him in this particular area. So the policy just outlines and just gives you guidelines and steps that you can take when trying to make those decisions about which teachers or which instructional staff you're going to non-renew based upon need of the district. And then the policy goes on and it talks about the notice to individual staff members. You know, it tells you that you have to give written notice of that decision to that affected member or staff member. And then it also talks about how the staff member may ask the board to review it. And they have a right to a hearing as well. And then there are also stipulations in the policy about obligations with respect to reemployment or other employment. So after you release a staff member and say conditions change, you may want to rehire that same employee, and you can. And it says under obligations with respect to reemployment, it says for 2 years after the effective date of a termination pursuant to this policy, the board will not replace the professional staff member whose employment has been terminated without first offering the position to the terminated professional staff member first. So if conditions change and that particular position becomes available, then the district has to offer it to that person who you let go first. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Attorney Hannah, is there anything else in that policy that I did not address?
No, it's just, this policy is based on state law and it's based on experience. And so the rehiring part is actually based on state law. So it's not if you want to rehire them, but let's say you eliminate a math position and next year you realize you need another math position. You have to first offer the position to that person who you let go, whether you liked them or thought they were a great employee or not. But that's the law. You have to first offer them for the position. If they turn it down, then your obligation is done. The part I would say about all these different factors is it is district-wide, it is not school-wide. Dr. Bagley and I both have been through the 2009 years where RIFs were taking place, and it is not a black and white process. It's very gray, it's very complex, and you have to look at a lot of factors, and so that's why they're in this policy. If you only have one Latin teacher in the district and she's retired, you're going to keep that person because there's nobody else to fill that, even though you're going to let go retired teachers first, perhaps, because they don't have a contract, because you're saying we're going to look at contracts. And we're going to look at things of that nature. If you have a teacher who is the only person who can possibly coach your lacrosse team, and I'm just making that up, that person may get to stay because that's an extra duty. You may have reading coaches at the elementary level. If they're a reading coach, probably they're very good teachers. And so they have experience, they have continuing contracts, probably higher degrees, and the skills you need. You may let go a fourth-year teacher because you need the reading coach to go back. That's why we're talking about it's a moving target. It's not easy. And you basically have to put a chart up on the wall when you decide we need to eliminate 10 positions and which ones are we going to eliminate. And then you go in and you start moving pieces like checkers and on a board. And Dr. Bagley may be able to add more to that, but this is, again, it's not an easy process. We hope you don't have to go down this path anytime soon, but if you need to eliminate $1 million, $2 million from your budget, these may be things that you have to look at. The process is very similar for non-certified employees. Just so you know, we're just not looking at certifications in that case. But Dr. Bagley, would you like to share any experience from addition from your past?
Yes, it was a very difficult time, needless to say. Our policy looked very much like this policy. I don't think it's changed that much over the years. It was very methodical, thought-provoking, really looking district-wide at needs, what was unique, what was a difficult certification to get. As I have told you before, we elected to ask 12 retired teachers not to return in order to save 25 first-year teachers. Those 12 salaries equal 25 first-year teachers. We had reading and math and science coaches that went back into the classroom because after then you start looking at experiences and, the more experience you wanted in the classroom versus less experience at that time. It did become, like Allison said, a checkerboard look, a domino effect. Same with the classified individuals, it's the same way. It's something that I do not want to do again because you have the scars of it for a very long time. At the same time that we were doing this, we were also building $270 million worth of new buildings, additions, renovations, and people did not understand how you could be cutting positions, how you could be asking people to leave. Taking salary cuts. We took salary cuts, all of us went part-time when you have yellow tractors out there moving dirt and you're building new buildings, but it's two different funding sources. And so that was a great deal of anguish at the time. So everything that is on this reduction in force, we utilized, from volunteer to reduction in salaries to reduction in the work day to reduce the salary by a percentage. And then as soon as it improved, then we started putting things back. We came back strong. Now it's a memory, but it's one that you don't forget. But it is a very methodical, it's not haphazard. It's, you have to be able to defend what you do, why you did it, and show how the dots are connected. And the policy really does outline how you would proceed.
I had a question, Allison, and thank you for mentioning lacrosse, because you know that my twin nephews are in college now for lacrosse. Yes, love
I didn't know that.
Yes, Hampton University lacrosse played. Anyway, in the last paragraph before the obligations with request to reemployment of other employment, it states that if an employee asks for a hearing and they plead their case and it is not accepted by the board, then we have to notify them within 10 days of the hearing that their case has not gone forward and the superintendent's decision stands. But then it says if the board determines that the professional staff member's contention has been established, it will inform the staff member and the superintendent by a written notice. Do we need to put a timeline there? because it just says, notice that
We would
states.
do it, we would do it at the same, in the same timeframe, because you've made your decision. And I've never seen that happen. What I think the intent is, if a board just said, we're gonna RIF one person, and it looks punitive, I've only ever seen the RIFs done when there's like 10 or 12, in Anderson 5, 50, RIFs. But no, we would just use the same time frame for that.
Okay.
Because you're going to put them back and you're still paying them, so you want them back as soon as possible.
So I would like to point out, that the second policy, GDQA support staff reduction in force, is basically the same as the instructional staff, but it does not have provisions in the policy for support staff members to request a review, to request a hearing, or any conditions for reappointment. So that's the difference between the two policies.
And that's the difference, because they're not certified, and that state law only deals with certified employees. And the support staff members are at will, so they don't have these contract rights that your teachers do and your administrators.
Okay. Any further questions on that? Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Nixon?
I'm good.
Ms. Allison, let me just, I have two quick questions. If this became something, the reduction in force became something that we had to look at for our district, what is the hierarchy as far as, is the superintendent the one who is deciding the criteria that we're going to be using? Does the board give guidance in that, or does the board wait for the superintendent to make whatever recommendation she wants, and then the board goes from there?
So based on the policy, the superintendent comes to you and say, I believe that we need to implement a reduction in force for these 2 reasons or these 3 reasons. And the board approves the reduction in force. And so the board says, we agree that we need to reduce, and again, I'm gonna make up a number, $2 million from our budget, effective immediately. Then that goes back to the superintendent, who goes through all this criteria and does all this chess and checkerboard movement, for different people, and goes through those criteria. And before any decision is made, then the superintendent comes back to you and says, these are the people, and this is why I think these changes need to be made. So the superintendent is the one ultimately making the decision for what criteria is used, because she's going to have to defend that, okay? But you first, as a board, have to say, yes, we're going to go this route, and we're going to, we need to eliminate $2 million, and we're going to use our reduction in force to do so.
Okay.
And then you all ultimately make the decision about that, the staff, after she makes a recommendation.
Okay. And let me ask Ms. Allison just a question in wording on policy GDQA, the support staff reduction in force, about almost exactly middle way of that policy. The paragraph that begins with, before it begins action to not renew support staff employment under this procedure. Does that wording need to be changed? Because let's just throw out a hypothetical that something happens this year and we realize middle of the year we have to implement this reduction in force. The wording there to me says not to renew, where this person is currently already working in this new school year.
We could certainly look at that language. I know what the intent of it is because and again, this is because the policies are similar in your contract, which is not these people, okay? But your certified employees, their contracts all say it's a contract, but there's also a paragraph, a specific provision that talks about it's valid unless the board has to implement a reduction in force. So it's actually built, and that's every contract in the state.
Sure.
For teachers and administrators, it's built in. So yes, your support staff don't have contracts and they're at will, but I could see that we could probably tweak that language a little bit, but that's where that came from, and that's the intent behind it.
And I completely understand that. I am just, I am a classified employee in a school district. And if they came to me and said, hey, we have to implement this RIF, and we're coming for your job, I am going to definitely point to this language and say, well, we can talk about it next year when it comes time for you to renew my contract, but we can't talk about it now because this says renew.
We can look at that. Most support staff members do not have contracts. They are at will. And if they have contracts, they're written such that they're not like teacher contracts. But that's apt. I would like to look at what one of your support staff contract looks like, and that's absolutely something that could be revised very easily. Yep.
Okay.
And this is a good time to look at something like that when it's not a crisis and you don't need to do it.
Any other questions, policy committee members? Superintendent Williams, you or your staff, any other questions or input?
No, I think I'm good. Staff members, do you all have any other suggestions or any comments on this particular policy, on these two policies?
Looking out, I do see that we have some other board members here. Any questions or comments from any of our fellow board members? Excuse me.
Well, I'm sure it would come to us for revision, but did I understand that the choices that you're given, they're not in order in the policy, but they're grouped together, that the superintendent and the board could look at the choices that are there and others?
That's correct.
Anyone else, anything?
If I could add, because your staff is very prompt, your classified employee contracts at the very beginning in red and underlined and bold says, all classified employees, and I'm going to paraphrase, are employed at will and may quit or be terminated at any time and for any or no reason. This does not create an express or implied contract or contract of employment for a specific duration and shall not be read to create a contract for a specific duration. So again, we can certainly look at that language, and I agree, tweak it a little bit, but your contracts already cover you in this situation.
And so, Ms. Allison, just from a legal perspective, that heading on the top of the employment agreement that's sent out each year would preempt what's in the policy?
Well, you would just work in tandem. What it's saying is you can terminate any contract for any reason for classified employees.
Right.
Because they're at will. It's really just an employment agreement, not a contract.
Right.
But what you would want to do is read that in tandem with your RIV policy on how you're going to make your decisions.
Okay.
It gives you the process.
Anyone else, anything on that before we move to our last one on our agenda for tonight? And I do not want to cut anybody short or anything, but we are kind of under a time limit. I think we've got about 12 more minutes. So the last one on our agenda is 1.07, which is policy GCC, professional staff leaves and absences. And I will turn this over to Superintendent Williams. But before I do, I would like to say, I hope all of my fellow board members have had an opportunity. If not, I can send you the link. There was an article that was published, I think, last week about staff absences in the school districts in South Carolina, particularly in the Low Country. Colleton was on there, Charleston was on there, Dorchester 4 was on there, I think Berkeley was on there, there were others. So if you have not had an opportunity to look at that article, I think you'll find some very interesting information in there. And I know for Superintendent Williams' part and for her staff's part, employee absences and attendance has been something that has been talked about a lot over the last several years. In order for our scores to go up, we need our teachers and our staff present to be able to teach our kids and stuff. So before we get to the policy, I just want to say, if you have not been able to look at that article, please do, so you can have a better understanding of the critical issues that our districts are facing right now with staff attendance and absences and those things. All right, Superintendent Williams?
All right, so if we look at policy GCC, I think what we'll do, just for the sake of time, instead of me going through this entire policy, just to kind of hit on the part that I think we need to discuss and just kind of talk about and listen to reasons as to why the policy is written as it is. But if you turn over to page 3 of the policy, and if you look at that second paragraph, it reads, it says, exception, retired employees who return to work full-time under a letter of agreement will accrue sick leave and personal leave days in accordance with this policy. Any unused leave days will not carry over from year to year for those employees and will not be paid as a lump sum at any time. And I think there were some concerns, there were some concerns about the fact that we have retired personnel, personnel that are working on letters of agreement who cannot carry over their sick leave days to the next year. And I just wanted us to have a discussion about why it's written that way, and so that you could better understand and then better make decisions as to how the board wants to move forward with it. So, Ms. Hamilton, I hate to put you on the spot.
Put her on the spot. Put her on the spot.
I really want to hear from you guys before I chime in. I don't know what to answer or what to say.
Okay.
So I will say this. I think in the climate that we're in today with teacher shortages and teacher recruitment and teacher retention, I think that we should do everything we can to make being a teacher in Colleton County more attractive. I think carrying over, if we have retired teachers, I don't know, Ms. Hamilton, maybe you can just throw out an example. I'm sure we have some retired teachers who have been back teaching with us for several years, right? Not just 1 year. So what would be the harm in this board saying, if you're willing to come out of retirement and come back and teach for us, that we will allow you to accumulate and carry over those days? Now, I realize it also says that we won't pay out at any period. And Ms. Allison, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are districts in our state that do pay out a portion or a certain amount of sick time, vacation time, whenever employees leave. I think it's Colleton, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Hamilton, I think it's Colleton's practice. We will pay out vacation if you leave, if you have any vacation left. That's incorrect?
That's incorrect. This is sick leave. And so that is tacked on to retirement, and I really don't want to get into the finance piece of it because she knows it best, but we do not pay for annual leave that's unused. So if a retiree leaves with sick leave up to 90 days, the state PEPA will pay them for that time on the back end.
For the sick leave, but not for the vacation time.
So 190-day employees
Don't get vacation time.
Yeah,
Right.
don't get vacation time.
Right. But for our and I don't want to get bogged down in this, but the 240-day employees who get vacation time, we don't pay anything for that.
We do not.
Okay.
If we use it or lose it.
Do we pay that sick time as well, up to 90 days, or no?
No.
No.
For vacation?
No, for sick time.
For 240 people?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Days typically for sick leave is allowed to be used to add on to your service credit as you leave. So if you've worked 28 years, you will get, if you have 90 days, you would have 28 years and 3 months, and that's through PEPA. Now, Daryl, you are correct. There are some districts who pay out for sick leave and for vacation. One of the things that needs to be considered is a lot of these policies were written back during the era of Terry, when people were being paid out and then coming back, and so it was to limit some of these things. But even now, if you have a certified employee who is coming back, you all can't even begin to hire them until after May 31st because of how the state law is written. You have to wait until then to prove that you've advertised, that you can't find a qualified person, and then you go about hiring, and then you have to file certain certifications with the state. And so that's why some districts, and many districts, and in fact most districts, don't allow retirees to accrue and carry over leave. There are some that do, so this is up to you. This is not a legal issue. This is a Colleton County issue for your consideration. But it does make it difficult at times for the staff because they don't know if the person's going to come back. Because you can't just say, we're welcoming you back. You know, that is not what is happening. So those are considerations for you to consider.
And I was going to say, and as far as someone who is retired, who if I went back to work and decided that I needed to take time off for someone in my family who's older than me that I had to spend some sick days with to take care of for, say, a month, after 12 days, if our policy here is after 12 days, I've lost all of my sick leave. So I think as a county, if we consider it, we might want to consider, you know, extending that for those people who are retired, because, you know, I'm not getting any younger, and neither are my older family members. So, you know, that's one of the things I would take into consideration.
Ms. Hamilton, were you going to say something else?
Allison said something that, but I lost.
Okay, if you think about it, let me know. Mr. Cunningham, any input on this? I do. I just think, Mr. Nixon, I agree with you. And I just think anything we can do to make teaching in our district more attractive. And if that means offering our retired teachers the ability to accrue from year to year. Now, if we want to come back and say, I mean, we're already saying that we're not going to pay for it, you know, if they do that. But if we can come up with a way to say you can accrue it as long as you're still employed with us and use it that way or something. And I also, not that we will do this tonight, but I think this policy committee also needs to look at other ways we can make it more attractive to be a teacher in Colleton County. And I'll just say, Ms. Hamilton, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not teachers, but for like our 240 who do get vacation time, we get 10 days and you can carry over. Is it still 5 that you can carry over from year to year?
Use it or lose it. So on June 30th, if you have not used all your leave, it's gone.
And so I know, working in DD4, that they carry over vacation days, sick days they carry over 90 days, vacation days they can carry over up to 45 days. So not that we want to get to that point, but something that we maybe can look at in order to make it more attractive. Maybe we say you can carry over 5 days or 10 days of vacation. I know that's 240, but I'm saying we need to look at this attendance policy in all aspects in order to figure out how can we make it more attractive for people to want to come and work in our district.
I think too, I wish Ramona was here because I know that she has some reservations about the financial part about rolling over days for retirees.
Right.
It's just not, it's not as simple as it looks.
In rolling over for the retirees? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I would be very happy if we can get that, Ms. Hamilton, if maybe you can work with her and get that. And even if we decide to present this to the board for first reading, then we would still be able to get that information before we go to second reading to make any changes that we need to do. Yes? Okay.
And one other
Well, Daryl, if I could say it, so I think what's being presented for first reading for next time is those first 5, and then the next 2 are for discussion. And if you all want to, I think the RIF was just discussion as well.
Right.
And then this one for leave, if you all want to make changes, then we'll need to do that for the next policy committee because there are no changes recommended tonight. So start with the first 5, and then we'll have to have another policy, again, unencumbered time, live streaming, and whatever recommendations y'all want to make to this policy. Revisions.
Okay. I think Mr. Nixon had another comment.
Yeah, one other thing on this particular document dealing with sabbaticals. I noticed that when it said acceptable criteria for the leave will be limited to completion of a degree requirement, improvement of certification, or participation in a program of educational significance. Now, educational significance is the important thing there because I took a sabbatical 1 year to tour with an opera company. And in Colleton County, they gave me, a half-year sabbatical. Have we changed that now that it can't be for, and granted, I did tour with an opera company that went to schools in the Southeast. So in theory, it was educational to someone. But I can't say whether that would be something that we would consider on our policy.
made her
districts,
speechless.
most districts have this policy, and very few people take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how your district would apply it, but I mean, in my mind, your thing sounds very educational and important, but I don't know how your district has done it in the past.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for anyone to take a sabbatical at this point, so we will try to stay away from that. Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time. We have encroached into our capital projects work session. So I will, Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Nixon, do you have anything else before we wrap this one up? Superintendent Williams, anything else? I do not. Dr. Bagley, I don't think I've given you a chance to speak at all. So thank you very much, Ms. Allison. We appreciate it. All of our staff members who are here, thank you so much for your input and for your attendance. And we will, seems like we will have another policy committee meeting very soon to roll over some of these things. Thank you very
I will
much.
have these policies, these 5 for you for the next board meeting, okay?
Thank you very much, Ms. Allison, and this policy committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.